pollution is something that we can put to use. And that's what we are doing. We are turning carbon emissions into products that can be used on a day-to-day basis. We created air ink out of it.
Hello and welcome to another episode of 8. My name is Sanjay Chakravarti. I'm the founder of Tag8. Today's guest brings something to us that you could almost call is science fiction. That's what I thought the first time I heard it. I'm absolutely delighted to have Nikhil Kaushik, ex-colleague from EY and a dear friend, who is the co-founder and CEO of Graviky Labs. Nikhil, thank you for coming in.
It's my pleasure, Sanjay.
Nikhil, you know the format of the show, so let me hit on first question. Yeah. Who is Nikhil? One breath.
Very difficult to define for myself. I've never tried that, but yes, I am a chartered accountant by qualification, but I love to experiment with different things, and I find a lot of interest in climate change and education. For the last 6 years, I'm more focused on climate change right now. Yeah.
Awesome. Second question, tell us something more about your baby, Graviky Labs.
Yeah, so we started building a commercial lab. We wanted to do something interesting, and there were a lot of ideas that were floating around, and team was working on it. And out of one of that idea came out to be air ink, which we have talked about in past. And this is our approach towards climate change. We believe that nature doesn't understand the idea of waste. If Earth has been recycling itself for last billions of years, right? So what we are doing essentially is we are saying pollution is something that we can put to use. And that's what we are doing. We are turning carbon emissions into products that can be used on a day-to-day basis. We created air ink out of it, which is now being used by a lot of people across the world to replace their conventional printing and making it more sustainable.
Great. So let me get this in greater detail. You're talking about capturing carbon and converting it into ink. How do you do that? To me, it's still just something that I know you've tried and explaining it before, but let maybe the audience listen to it and hopefully they'll have a better understanding. I just don't get it really. How do you get carbon out of thin air and really make ink out of it?
See, if you think of it, what is climate change? What essentially, when we talk about global warming or climate change, it is about increase in carbon content in the air. Now, yes, when you talk about Western conversation, it is more on CO2. But in Indian context, every year around Diwali, we start talking about AQI is so bad. That is primarily PM 2.5 conversation. The particulate matter that comes out of burning of fossil fuels, which floats in the air and is really harmful. And it is, when we talk about things like asthma, things about cancer, these are the things that are not caused by CO2. It is caused by this PM 2.5, PM 10 emissions. But what are these emissions? Technically, they are carbon in nature and very rich carbon source. What we are doing is, right now we are collaborating with a lot of industries which are burning fossil fuel, help them sequester those carbon emissions. And once you do that, that's where our own process comes into play, where we use these carbon emissions that we have captured with these industries and use that as a replacement for carbon black right now in ink making. In future, it could be using it as a feedstock for replacing the black color in your laptop bodies, your car, interiors. There's even tires, for example. Tires are basically carbon black. As the basic ingredient is carbon black only. So technically what we are doing is we're working with these industries who are burning fossil fuels, who have an exhaust, pipe or a chimney, as we call it, where these fossil fuels are getting out, but they already have an existing pollution control device on it. We take the emissions from there and use that to recycle and make air ink out of it. Though we have also worked on our own technology to do carbon capture, we are not deploying it much. We believe as we scale up and have more demand for our products, there will be a case to go upstream and use our own capturing devices. But that's for future. Right now, we are really building for efficiency in terms of how we can have more and more demand for air ink. And that's why making these collaborations with these industries makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, this still seems really a science fiction, and it's really amazing that we are doing this kind of work. Just a related question there. When you do this conversion, are these major facilities which is centralized, or are these smaller facilities that can be set at various places?
The long-term goal is to have a decentralized approach. Rather, pre-COVID, our approach was to move a lot of stuff to China and Mexico. But and that makes a lot of sense, right? Because the significant carbon footprint that is attached to the globalized manufacturing is the shipping. So you make something in China, you ship it to US, then you ship the waste back to somewhere in the world. What if you can just create these micro circular economies? I take your pollution, upcycle it into products that you use in that location itself. That's a long-term goal. But right now, it's a centralized approach. As I think the more and more demand we create in particular geographies, we should be able to then move the whole process itself to those locations instead of just the consumption. And that will significantly reduce the shipping carbon footprint of the whole thing, end to end, what you call cradle to cradle thing. And but yeah, that's still, I think, a couple of years down the line. Nothing happening right now on that.
Got it. Awesome. Nikhil, a related question. Are there already patents in place? Can you kind of get patents for these kind of processes?
So some of these things we have protected via patents, but a lot of things are, iteration. So we keep as a trade secret. But again, to be very honest, right now, just about 3 days back, we launched an open source project at COP27, and that is ideally about that you open up certain. That's not about airing. That's about different technology within CO2, capturing space. But the idea is that you open it up for people, because I do not see you can fight climate change with the same approach where you have built the existing world. So you will have to do away with a lot of these silos that we create via patents and via, trade secrets. As of now, yes, we are following certain of those, standard practices. But in long term, I think my co-founder Anirudh is a hardcore open source guy, and as I said, we just launched this project. But I think in coming years, we will see a lot of that happening. That don't try to protect these behind walls. Don't keep this the way we have built the existing world. Change some of these methods, and I think you will have a lot of people across the world adopting your technology and making a lot of difference that you can't. No, I can't be everywhere in the world. I can't go to Nigeria or Mexico all the time. So it's good to have a lot of people doing that in long term.
And even better to hear that. I think this is a great perspective. Nikhil, coming into just because you mentioned the COP27 bit, so these are there support that you're getting in terms of some sort of a carbon credit certificate or anything around it? So are there subsidies that are available for doing this kind of outstanding work?
It's very interesting that my answer is I really don't know. And I have built the whole business model around seriously not knowing these things. Our model is simple. You create a product that is really well, is quality wise great and works for the client. The LCS can establish the carbon footprint. When we have seriously large volumes moving, maybe we can look at carbon credits. But we have kept our whole business out of government space. We are purely building a commercial product. We're dealing with really very interesting enterprises who are interested in taking this up. But I'm sure as we scale up and we have large volumes to show up, carbon footprint calculation and creating credits out of it or getting subsidies in different parts of the world shouldn't be a biggest challenge.
Super. Nikhil, shifting gears, 6.5 years, chartered accountant, started off as a chartered accountant, worked in EY, spent time in debt raise, and then hitting this space. What is your key learning in the last 6.5 years?
One of the learning is that climate change is not a technical space. It has a huge technical stakeholders who are fundamentally required, but you don't have to be a chemical engineer to be in this space. As long I see that in coming years, every job, every business will become a climate change business. And for that to happen, everybody has to align himself or herself to do that. I think for me, initially there used to be a lot of this feeling that everybody in the room is a PhD. How do you even talk to those guys? It's not easy. And me and Anirudh, both of us don't come from that chemical engineering background, that though is what we are building as a product. And I think that in a way helped us. So I believe there is an outsider's perspective. How you bring somebody from outside in a team and say, okay, what do you think about my team? Right. And suddenly you realize the things that because all of us are chartered accountants, we were not noticing, that guy will notice. Right. So for example, human resource in EY is not CAs, right? They are HR professionals. Same way, I think for me, the biggest learning was that it's good to be not to be from the core engineering space, because you can work with engineers and so make a solution that works for people. But yeah, that has its own challenges, because you are in a way floating in a space which is, which you are really not, you have not learned, you have not went to college into that space, you have not had prior experience in that space, so it in a way slows down you sometimes. But I think that's okay. This is a slow moving space anyways. It's not a SaaS product, so it can't move fast. It takes its own time. Our sales cycles anyways are so long that you can learn on the go.
Got it, got it. So Nikhil, coming to the bit, and I read about this project that you are doing with Diageo. I would love to hear more about it, because for a company out of India doing such a massive global project, I was really, really proud to hear that. If you could just very quickly talk about that.
Well, it's an unfortunate thing. I'll start with that till date, we have had a zero project launches in India. All our projects, everything that we have done has happened outside India. Now, I think that's the whole thing about first adoption that normally doesn't happen with us. First adoption is generally done by certain specific economies. The Diageo collaboration was actually in a very interesting space for us because of that, because it happened right after COVID started. And for us, it was like we were peaking at the time COVID, was happening. We were doing a lot of things. Suddenly, everything went to a complete zero. And as we were reopening ourselves and seeing what to do, and I think this collaboration started shaping up. And I'm really talking about 2020. It may have launched this year, but the collaboration actually started in October of 2020. And
Right.
I think in a way that gave us a lot of hope that even if people are completely shut in terms of they are not going to their offices, people are operating out of their homes, um, even in that dire times, I think there was this suddenly people were really taking up the climate change conversations really well. And I think from that conversation, Diageo started happening. It's still early days in terms of we have just launched 3 markets. I think we are doing India next month, December, it should happen. But there's a lot more. There's another 10 markets happening over next 1 year. And we're getting some phenomenal response, people reaching out from all over the world, trying to get hold of one of these bottles. I don't have a single bottle with me yet. I have a friend from EY itself who brought a few bottles, but they are still in Mumbai, so they are closer to you than they are to me right now. But so there is a lot happening, and I think Diageo team has been phenomenal in the sense that they are taking something which was very difficult to execute during those days when we started the conversation.
Yeah.
And but they didn't give up. I remember there were times when I would have given up, to be honest. I'm not denying that, but their team was so committed to it, and I think they are really building it up really well, and we could see how it is helping us. There's so many other type of businesses who are now reaching out to us, so there's a lot of I think benefits that are going to accrue over the next few years for us because of this collaboration. But for me, the most important thing is you have a permanent, a collector's item that they have created, and a lot of people love that. So I remember Game of Thrones edition. I don't know whether you remember it or not. It went viral. A lot of my friends would say, hey, if you're coming from UK, bring one. And thankfully now I have my own edition that we have created. So that's a big big achievement for us, to be honest.
I will try and get hold of one as well. So, and essentially it's used to create the label of the limited edition bottle. I guess I'm hoping that I'll get one soon, or get hold of one soon.
I'll send you one, dude. Once they reach me, I'll send you one for sure.
That'd be awesome. That'd be awesome. So, Nikhil, just last question, one breath. Where do you see this whole initiative in 8 months' time and in 8 years' time?
I think next 8 months, it's not that things will change fundamentally, but we see, we are gaining strength. We are gaining, things are opening up really well. I hope China opens up. That will give us a lot of play, room to play. So next 8 months, it's all about maintaining the momentum and making sure that we keep doing the good stuff that is happening right now. Next 8 years, to be honest, I would love to be like any other business. I want to give up the novelty factor that is associated with me, because that's my hope that in climate change, we or anybody else who is working like us, I know there are a lot of wonderful startups that are in this space. We are not seen as some outliers who are doing some activist type of work or some interesting work. Everybody becomes like us, because that's the only way. Because in 8 years' time, we are actually hitting 2030. And that's where all the climate change goals are sitting. So I hope 2030, nobody wants to talk to Nikhil, Kaushik, or Graviky Labs or Anirudh Sharma because they are doing something unique. We productize everything that we are doing. People just want to buy this product and compete with other products because they are equally sustainable. I think that would be a wonderful, maybe a utopian, but wonderful place to be in.
That's outstanding, Nikhil. I mean, I'm most excited to the fact that you have a chartered accountant coming out of India working on such cutting edge material technology space, and with such a huge impact on climate change, which is like, I guess, discussed in every dining table, boardroom, in every discussion around the world, and it is so very critical. So I'm absolutely delighted, Nikhil, that you guys are doing such fabulous work, and wish you the very best. Thank you so much for coming in. It's just been a pleasure.
Same here, Sanjay. It was a pleasure talking to you today. Thank you.